Welcome to the Global Missions Podcast, a show for Christ followers who want to participate more effectively in God's work, both at home and to the ends of the earth. Visit us at globalmissionspodcast.com to find show notes, resources, and previous episodes. And now, here's your host, Rob Magwood, better known to many friends as Mags.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's episode. We're going to be talking about how churches can practically minister to, how they can care for third culture kids when they're on home service. Our guest today is Valerie Williams, who has worked with the Evangelical Alliance Mission. We call them TEAM for simplicity. She's served there for the past 10 years as the MK coordinator and serves over 400 MKs across the globe. If you're not familiar with the term MK, stay tuned. We're going to cover that right away. She was born and raised in Ohio, and before she served in this role, she and her husband Jim were mission workers in China and Russia. They had 4 MKs of their own. Valerie, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
We're looking forward to talking today about ministering to third culture kids, sometimes called MKs. So, Valerie, we'll start with this very basic question, the foundation. What is an MK or a third culture kid?
Well, an MK stands for missionary kid, so that would be a child of a missionary serving overseas. A third culture kid, however, is anybody who has grown up at least part of their childhood years in a country outside of their parents' passport culture. So that could include military kids. It could include
embassy kids, for example.
Exactly.
Well, this is a special bunch, a very precious group of kids. Now, please tell us just a little bit about your experience working with this crew over the years.
Well, I was blessed to be a teacher of these special kids. We worked at Hinson Christian Academy, and then we started a school in southern Russia, Krasnodar International School, where I was a teacher and worked with third culture kids, as well as raising my own kids overseas. And then for the past 10 years, I've had hundreds of missionary kids through TEAM that I've worked with and listened to and supported and encouraged lots of time with MKs.
Well, thank you for doing that. As we've said already, this is a very special group of people who are along with their parents, usually, to participate in God's work, or cross-culturally in some sense, at least, overseas. Now, today our topic specifically is to zoom in on an element of this. Our topic is third culture kids, how to minister to third culture kids when they're on home service. So by home service, what we mean is furlough, home assignment. Different organizations and churches may call it different things, but we want to focus on that time when these kids are back in their passport countries or the passport countries of their parents. So with that in mind, Valerie, what are some aspects of home service that third culture kids often enjoy?
Kids love the food that they've missed. Often they'll name candy bars that they haven't had in 4 years. Chick-fil-A comes up frequently, different foods that they've missed. They also always say they love seeing grandma and grandpa and their cousins and different friends that they've left behind. That's always a joy to see. People, those are two of the big ones that I hear all the time from kids.
Now, those are some of the things they enjoy, but what are some of the challenges that TCKs, third culture kids, often face when they come on home service?
A lot of times they will miss their friends back in the country where they serve. They often attend a school, and so they'll miss school if they're here for a year. They'll miss different events going on at school. Maybe it's a track and field day or some other special event that they'll miss. Oftentimes, their toys are all at their home in the country overseas. And so they maybe have a handful of toys with them because they can't bring everything. So they'll miss some of their toys. Those are difficult things to be a be a little one and not have your toys. For the older ones, the travel is exhausting because mom and dad are often visiting churches all over the country. That involves a lot of time in the car, which can be very boring for little ones and big ones too. So that can be a tough one. Another thing could be just the culture in America is different, and in North America. I remember one time we came back and my son Derek had never seen a drinking fountain before. We always carried our own water bottles with us. And he saw a drinking fountain and he kept pushing the button, and just this amazement on his face with the water pouring out. And people looked at him like he was very strange, but he had never seen it before.
Well, what I hear you saying is that there are elements of culture change and even culture shock for kids as they return. It's true that they're very resilient and they're very flexible, but there is culture shock and culture change for kids too, right?
That's absolutely true. I've also heard a lot of children mention just being able to walk on the grass. In many countries overseas, they're not allowed to walk on it if it exists. To be able to roll in the grass they're like hesitant to step on it at first, but they enjoy that very much. So definitely changes.
Now, you've mentioned some things about toys that might apply to the little ones, although I suppose toys are true of anyone. How about teenagers? When we get up into those teen years, is there anything particular that you notice about teens on home service?
Teenagers typically have not experienced a youth group kind of setting. That is really difficult for them to integrate into a youth group. It's terrifying. They don't know anyone and they don't really feel like they fit. Their experience has been completely different. They've been in a different world. So they really can have difficulty participating in a youth group. They need people to pursue them and say, "Hey, Johnny, come on in. Let's go do this youth group. People need to invite them and really welcome them because it can be so overwhelming."
We had a personal experience of something like this when we were at a conference for our organization, and families came together in the summertime. And of course, that meant that some of the teenage MKs or TCKs had to come with their families, and it was another trip to another conference. And they were, in some cases, just not sure they really wanted to be there. And that's when it was really important that the very first night of the conference, another teen who was there approached them immediately and said, "Hey, what's your name?" And, they shared their name and they said, "We're going for ice cream tonight. Go tell your parents we're going for ice cream and then you'll be home later. Let's go." And this TCK, this third culture kid, almost didn't know what to do, but they said, okay. And they went and told their parents we're going for ice cream. And that changed the whole conference for them. That one simple invitation. When they were pursued, they were invited, and it was expected that they would come in a nice way, in the most positive sense. And their parents didn't see them for the rest of the conference because they were hanging out with all the kids, and that community had been built up again. So it just reminded me when you shared how important it is for these young people to be pursued. They are wanted and they're welcomed.
Absolutely. And they also don't want to be made to feel different, like they're some strange entity, but they like to be listened to. They enjoy sharing their stories and they want to be heard. They just don't want to be singled out. No middle schooler does, or high schooler. They want to fit in with the group.
Right. Valerie, we know that churches really do want to take good care of these kids when they come on home service. We want to lift their awareness through this episode. I'd like to ask you this question. What are some of the ways that churches really can help TCKs?
Well, there's a lot of things churches can do. The first thing they can do is to be welcoming without saying welcome home, because the country that teen has lived in, or child, usually that's what they consider home, not their parents' passport country. So when you say welcome home, they look at you like, this isn't really my home. I don't really know you, and I don't really know anything about this culture. So be welcoming, but don't say welcome home.
Do you have a suggested approach to that? Do you have a phrase that you would recommend that we use instead?
Maybe we're so glad you're here. Welcome without putting the home in. Just remember, for third culture kids, home really is more about people than places. They may have lived in 2 or 3 different countries. Home really isn't a place, it's people.
Okay, we'll be welcoming, but we'll avoid saying welcome home. What else would you suggest we consider?
Really listen to their stories. They have amazing stories to share. Oftentimes, churches give the 5-minute welcome and don't allow the kids any time to share their experiences. Maybe having someone who, not a formal debrief, but who will just say, hey, tell me about your time, and really, really sit down and listen for more than 5 minutes to some of the stories that have happened and the experiences that they've had. That's so important.
Valuing them and their story, their journey, just like we seek to value their parents, right? But acknowledging it's a bit different.
That's right. And sometimes they've had some really hard things happen, and they need a place to process that.
Really good advice here. We're going to take a short break here, and we'll come right back to this same question, other ways that churches can help TCKs. Just before we get to the rest of these ideas, we'd like to share with you a missions resource that we hope will be helpful to you and your church.
Is there a role for me on the mission field? Can I really raise my own support? How will my kids handle culture shock? If you're wrestling with these or similar questions, Team's experts can help you find answers. Discover missionary roles that fit your passions. Create a plan that works with your family's needs and get top-notch coaching to raise support. Connect with a Team Missions Coach today at team.org/missionscoach. That's TEAM.org/missionscoach. And now, back to today's conversation.
Okay, we're back with Valerie Williams, who serves as the Global Third Culture Kid Coordinator with Team. And Valerie, we're talking about ways that churches can minister to third culture kids. You've said already, be welcoming without saying welcome home, and being careful to listen to stories. What are some other suggestions you have for us, ways churches can help TCKs?
Another thing they can do is to invite the third culture kids to their activities in their church. They may not be aware because they may have been traveling to a different church for their fundraising. So just making them aware of, hey, we're going to have this activity. Would you like to come? Again, it's that invitation and pursuing them. That's really important. And churches can do that. That doesn't cost anything. It's easy to do. Just reach out and make them feel welcome.
Do you find that TCKs typically would accept invitation to group things, or do they prefer to meet in smaller groups or like one-on-one or small groups with new friends?
Oftentimes they prefer the smaller groups, and that's because they may have not had a large church experience. If their parents were church planting, there may have only been a few families in the church, and so they're used to smaller church environments. They don't typically have mega churches where missionaries serve. So the smaller groups are more comfortable for them.
Might be something to talk about with a youth pastor prior to having a TCK arrive, even if it's for a short visit. How will we welcome the kids in this family? It'd be nice to be prepared for that, and you could even understand a bit of the personality of a child too. They're all different. Some will like the big groups, right?
Yeah, there's always those who may be like a little more hidden in a larger group. So another thing that they could do is to reach out to the third culture kid before they come on home assignment. If they know that they're coming in June, reach out in April or May and say, hey, we're really looking forward to having you here. Here are some things here's what we're like. We'd love to have you come. And that goes a long way. Just that simple email or having a teen from the youth group or a Sunday school teacher reaching out to them before they even arrive makes them feel a lot less anxious about going.
How about preparing people who are actually at the church, Valerie, like Sunday school teachers, for example?
That's really important for the Sunday school teachers to understand the culture that the child has lived in. We had a situation where our son, when we had lived in China, all of our kids were taught in Chinese culture that when they are being reprimanded for something, that they should look down at the floor because it's disrespectful to look an adult in the eyes when they're being reprimanded because that puts them on the same level as the adult. And so our son was in Sunday school and he had done something small. It wasn't anything huge, but the teacher was reprimanding him and he was looking down at his shoes and the teacher was like, "You need to look at me." And our son refused because he felt that was so disrespectful. And the teacher was so angry and came to us and was very upset about how disrespectful our son was. And we had to educate her on the fact that he was actually being very respectful. It's just that in Asian cultures, it's completely the opposite of here in America. So that's important to understand those differences.
It's a great illustration. Do you have any suggestions like how teachers would go about learning these kind of things?
They could do some internet research on the culture, which would make them more welcoming and receiving to the child if they understood a little bit about the world they've just been in. They could talk to the parents. If there's anything that parents wanted to share that the teacher should know. And again, listening to the child's story sometimes can help them understand a little bit more about the culture as well.
Well, these are some helpful ideas for us. Please share some more practical ideas you have for how we can serve TCKs.
A really big need that third culture kids have are for English books. It costs a lot of money to ship a pile of books if you were just to purchase books. So a better alternative would be a Kindle or some other tablet reader where they could load a lot of English books on it. It serves a kind of a dual purpose because they can also play games or watch movies or things on the airplane because they're often traveling in a car or riding 18 hours or more on an airplane. So that's a very practical gift for our third culture kid.
Valerie, do you have suggestions that might relate to older TCKs, maybe high school or even college age?
I think it's helpful for older kids to have a mentor that will come and take them out for coffee, do things, help them understand the culture, maybe the nuances of the culture here. Another idea might be having a fellow teen help your student out for the first day of school, maybe helping them learn how to use a combination lock, which most MKs have never seen before. So it's important to practice because they have a very short amount of time to change classes. Having that teen that will befriend them in the cafeteria so they don't panic when they have to sit down at lunch. All of those things are super helpful. It can be overwhelming starting a new school and not knowing anyone. And many of the kids have grown up together in schools, so being the newbie can be really hard.
Now, Valerie, you talk with a lot of TCKs who are traveling with their parents. They're visiting churches very often to give a report. Tell us a little, how do TCKs feel about traveling with their parents to meet all these church people?
Well, oftentimes they hear their father's same message to the point where they have it memorized, so it's a little boring for them, and which makes them a little squirrely, and they often get tired of being in a different place where they don't know people, and people are coming up to them and saying, "Oh, I remember when you were yay high," and it's just overwhelming. And then when a church expects them to be on the stage and do some kind of interview or a skit or something that can be very anxiety producing and stressful for the MK. Many of our MKs are a little bit on the shy side. They just don't like to be expected to perform. So it's really helpful if a church can be understanding in that respect, and also just understand that if they're traveling to 20 churches, not all of them have the same dress code. So, just because they don't wear a dress doesn't mean that they don't love Jesus. Maybe all their dresses are dirty because they only packed 2 and they've been at 2 meetings right before they came to your church. And maybe they're a little squirrely because they have their dad's sermon memorized already, or it's just difficult for them to sit in strange places constantly. So just giving some grace to them is very helpful.
Well, these have been helpful ideas for when a missionary family, is making the rounds, as it were, on a furlough or a home service. Just as we begin to wind down here, I wonder, Valerie, if you'd comment, as families are getting ready to return to the field, are there any particular ways that churches can bless third culture kids?
Well, absolutely. One of the biggest ways they can help a family is doing some childcare while parents are packing up their things. Do some special things with your MK, spoil them and love on them a little bit while mom and dad are packing up. And also, they may need a truck or some other vehicle that's large that can take all their suitcases to the airport. And then it's just such a blessing and such a show of love and support if you, as a church, show up at the airport to send them off. I know you can't go through security, but still you can be at the beginning before they go through security and pray for them and love on them and hug them and send them off. And that's a real blessing to a family. And sending a little care package with goodies in it. I just remember getting a care package from our church, and oh my goodness, their kids were so excited. Those goodies are valued and treasured.
Well, it's good practical ideas for a church. Doesn't have to be fancy, but it is thoughtful. I wonder, Valerie, whether you can share with us some occasion when you really saw a church do a great job of caring for TCKs.
Sure. I know when we were on the field, we had a church that would send each of our kids birthday cards with a little bit of money in them, not cash, of course, but they would send the kids money. And then they would send us a gift as a family at Christmas time. And that was such a huge blessing. The kids really felt loved by that church and remembered like they were important. And then they even sent a little care package, and that's like gold, knowing what we can't get on the field and sending it is a very special blessing.
Now, Valerie, I wonder if there are resources that you can recommend for our listeners if they'd like to learn more about helping third culture kids while they're on home service.
One of the best resources that I found is a book called Misunderstood: The Impact of Growing Up Overseas in the 21st Century. And it's written by Tanya Crossman. It's just really helpful. She explains what a third culture kid is, what they feel, and so that you can understand what they go through. And I recommend it for every missions committee or senior pastor, anybody who's working with third culture kids. This is a book that will help you understand who they are.
Very good. Thank you. We will include that in the show notes. Perhaps you're new to listening to the Global Missions Podcast. You can visit the website, and the books that are mentioned or any of the resources are included in the show notes for this episode. Just before I get to my last question, Valerie, I want to ask if any of our listeners would like to follow up with you or contact you, how could they do that?
They would certainly be welcome to email me. My email address is valerie.williams@team.org.
Very good. We will include that also in the show notes. Here's the last idea I want to ask you. If you had a chance to stand before a group of pastors and missions committees who are seeking to do missions really well, and they want to love their missionary families. And they were willing to hear about how they could serve missionary kids. What would you want to say to that group of people?
I would want to tell them that it's more than sending a check every month. Caring well for a missionary family includes the kids doing little things like sending them a birthday card or even a little birthday gift, stickers in a card, anything, any little bit of love and care that you show for an MK will help that MK know that God loves them even when it's hard. Being overseas can be tough. It's important that a church loves on their missionaries and doesn't forget about the kids.
Well, it's a great word to finish on. Thank you for reminding us about taking care of the missionary family, and in this case, especially the missionary kids. Lots of practical ideas here. We appreciate so much you spending this time together with us on this program. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, we hope you found some very practical ideas in that episode about caring for third culture kids. I'll mention 2 other episodes of the Global Missions podcast that are related to this. Number 27, entitled How to Care for Returning Missionaries with Neil Pirolo, and episode 45, Caring for Missionary Families as They Engage in Transition, with Becky Machalis. These are related and will help fill out our ideas about how we can care for missionary families and their kids in transitions. We also want you to stay tuned for another episode coming this season, specifically talking about ministering to third culture kids as they engage the transition to college, often in their parents' homeland. We're looking forward to that episode soon. This episode is brought to you by the Global Missions Toolbox and produced by Send International in collaboration with other like-minded agencies. On behalf of the team, thank you for listening. We invite you to join us again in 2 weeks when we'll continue to explore this grand adventure of being Christ's witnesses to the ends of the earth.